Ruth, an apology. I'm going to make you my title. It's the least I can do. Ruth is your name, my mother's too, who was named after the biblical Ruth, who was known for her selflessness, after her husband's death, giving up her comforts to accompany her mother-in-law to an alien land. That is certainly an apt description of my mother, Ruth, who gave up her comforts to accompany her children through the alien land of living with my dad. Though I'm sure my sister would disagree. Exactly what was she giving up? I can hear her saying. Nobody was stopping her from taking us kids and leaving. I can hear her arguing. I don't know you well enough anymore to know if you ever became a full-blown biblical Ruth, but the signs were clearly there. The biblical Ruth tells her mother-in-law, "For where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, your God my God, and where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried." Which, in so many words, was what you told me after our first date. Now at that point, I think most boys would have, 1, been overjoyed at the depth and sincerity of your devotion, or 2, run for the hills feeling immediately smothered and tethered by your too soon too intense love. But I wasn't like most boys. I was scared, but I stayed. And for that, I'm sorry. I was a sophomore in high school. You were a junior, though I don't think we ever saw each other at school. You might have seen me in the musicals your sister Vicky sang in and that I, thankfully, just spoke in. I didn't even know Vicky had a sister until you introduced yourself as such. I had just finished performing Bartholomew and the Oobleck by Dr. Seuss for the Junior Achievement Talent Show, which just seemed to confuse people, who wondered, some out loud, whether storytelling was actually a talent. You were not confused. You introduced yourself to me and told me that Bartholomew was your favorite story as a child. And then you asked me out. I was so shocked, I accepted without even thinking about it. A naive Bartholomew diving into the Oobleck. Had I thought about it, I might have remembered that ever since the 4th grade, I'd noticed I enjoyed touching boys a lot more than I enjoyed touching girls. Had I thought about it, I may have recalled that I had fought against these feelings with a series of hand-holding girlfriends in elementary school and some sloppy make-out sessions in junior high. Had I thought about it, I may have realized that none of that had worked. So entering into a new relationship in high school to continue the delusion probably wasn't going to work either. It didn't. You got caught in the middle. I'm sorry. On our second date, we went to the movies to see Flash Gordon. You gave me a hand job. It was during the scene in which Flash Gordon and Prince Baron take turns sticking their hands into a hollow log with a giant wood beast inside. I remember thinking how hot Timothy Dalton, who played Prince Baron, looked in his revealing green tights. It also occurred to me, while your hand was down my pants, that the first time that I would have to have real sex with you would be as frightening to me as sticking my hand into a hollow log with a giant wood beast inside. Hand jobs seemed safer, and for the next 16 months, that is as far as we would go. During those 16 months, you would do your best to live up to your biblical namesake, giving yourself over completely. You taught me how to drive your stick-shift car and then insisted I drive whenever we were together. You gave up your interest and adopted mine. Pink Floyd's The Wall replaced Billy Joel's Glass Houses in your cassette deck, and within a month, you were a pot-smoking agnostic with a yen for theater and public speaking, despite a lack of enthusiasm for either. You even wrote a play, Fun at the Movies. Your setting was movie night at Junior Achievement. Your characters were all our friends, who you paired off in unbelievable romantic combinations. Your plot involved all these wacky couples sneaking out of the movie one by one to have mad, crazy sex. At the end of the movie, when the lights come up, you and I are the only ones remaining. That's when Sue, the director of Junior Achievement, announces it's all been a test, and you and I, as the only ones not to have sex, have won a trip to the Bahamas, courtesy of Ronald Reagan. I'm pretty sure your play was your not-so-subtle way of telling me we should have sex. Or you wanted me to take you to the Bahamas. But I was always bad at taking hints, as well as at making excuses. And eventually I ran out of them. And we made the monster with two backs for the first and only time on a Sunday afternoon in your bedroom, with my handicapped brother sitting in the next room. Bringing my brother along had been one of my main ways to avoid sex. But you weren't buying it anymore. You sat Sean down in front of your brother's Atari 2600, inserted a Pitfall cartridge, and put a joystick in his hands. Moments later, in your bedroom, you took my joystick out of my hands and inserted it into your Pitfall. Let's just say I was better at video games. I'm sorry. Our last 4 months together, we were a long-distance couple. You had put off school for a year while I was a junior, but now that I was a senior, you were attending Ferris State. Our physical separation made our actual separation so much easier. For me, and I hope for you too. The biblical Ruth, having sacrificed for her mother-in-law, goes on to lead a rich, fulfilling life in the alien land, becoming a stronger person perhaps than if she'd stayed in her homeland. Ruth, my mother, was not so fortunate. At 71, she still remains adrift, her world as alien to her today as it was then, still tethered to a marriage that died 40 years ago, her sacrifice for her children proving to be less out of selflessness, I now believe, and more out of a lack of self-worth. The two can be so easily confused. My sister probably could have told me that, had I bothered to listen. And now, at 48, terrified of becoming my mother, I find myself increasingly looking to the past, making amends for bad choices, bad lies, searching for absolution. Which is what made me think of you, Ruth. And what a lying fucking asshole I was to you all those years ago. I am so sorry. You ended your play with a monologue where your character tells my character how much she appreciates him, how he's been there for her in the hard times, and how she wishes they had met sooner. The last line of your play is a plea. Just tell me everything will be the same. My character never answers you in the play. And though I was never very honest with you when we were together, I will not lie to you now. Only the dead remain the same. That's not a bad thing.